Shabbat Shalom. As a Zoom meeting began this past week, I asked someone on the screen how they were doing. It's probably the most asked question in our culture ever. Hey, how's it going? And we've become so very good at answering this question. Yeah, good, okay, how are you? It's more reflex than truth a lot of the time. But when I asked this question, she just looked at me and no words came out. Even the reflex of habit was too overloaded or too tired or too drained or too something. But whatever that something was, finally just gave way. Yeah, good, okay, was just not shaped right to come out of her mouth. And I was so grateful for this flash of raw honesty, because it's all right if how we all really are is not, yeah, good, okay. I read an article last week, maybe you did too, about that was trying to figure out what the best word is to describe how many people seem to be feeling these days. The article says some folks are clearly doing great. Some folks are clearly depressed. But for many, in the muddle of the middle, the author settles instead on the word languishing. It's not the most joyful of words. It's kind of heavy, with a feeling of malaise, maybe, burnt out, stagnant, or just kind of meh. And I think it's particularly hard to acknowledge this right now, if this is where you are, because it seems like we're all supposed to be feeling amazing by this point. Spring has sprung, and except for some wicked sneezy allergies, it is really beautiful out. Folks are getting vaccinated, returning to outdoor activities, and yet here we are. The specter of going outside can be daunting, and going inside even more so. Are we wearing our masks or not? Will it be crowded? What about our unvaccinated kids? What are the rules again? And why am I always so tired? We've got renewed decision fatigue, lots of conflicting emotions about what we want. And that languishing article has birthed dozens and dozens more, published in every language across the globe, as folks are trying to understand, what is this state of being? So are we there? And if we are there, what should we do? This week in Parshat Emor, we are instructed to bring Moses clear oil of beaten olives for lighting in order to kindle the lamps regularly. In English, this might sound like the minutiae of the ancient temple, but in Hebrew, it might hit our ears differently. Bring this oil, we're told. Why? Laha'alot ner tamid. This is the verse where we learn to have a ner tamid, an eternal light in the temple, a light that would be tended to by Aaron and the other priests. If I were on a bima right now, I would turn around and I would point to the light that was definitely going to be hanging just above the ark, because it does in every synagogue around the world. We most often describe the Ner Tamid as a light that never goes out. That's what eternal means, right? And it is an eternality of light that is such a powerful and sustaining symbol for us and for our people. But that is not what the biblical lamp does. Ner Tamid does not actually translate to a light that is always on, whose fuel never runs out. That would be kind of impossible. People sleep, resources dwindle, days begin and days end, and darkness comes. The Ner Tamid was not intended to be eternal per se. It was intended to be regular. The priest was instructed to light the lamp regularly on a schedule, each morning to add more fuel, more oil, not to incessantly replenish the fuel to catch it before it goes out, but to be practiced and habituated towards relighting it when it does go out, when it languishes. That we can do. It's not easy. It takes practice, it takes commitment, and it still takes a team of people. But at least that's a ner tamid that is possible. Like our emotions, our moods, like our energy, we are not eternally lit, as it were. Like this ner tamid, we also need regular tending in which we relight ourselves and become habituated to and ritualized in reigniting a flickering flame. Maybe you feel like after more than a year of this, the understandably quickening pace of things reopening and normalcy returning is a shock to your system. I feel that maybe the past more than 13 months has taken a toll on your illumination, and it has languished from overuse and constant output. And maybe like so many, you're hesitant to say that out loud, because shouldn't we all be just shining forth like an army of Care Bears right now? The Torah Ha'aruch, which is a commentary from the 12th and 13th hundreds, comes to this text about the ner tamid with a very helpful question. The writer says this, he says, why are we talking about this lamp again? We discussed it at length when we learned how to build the Mishkan back in the book of Exodus. What gives Parshat Emor? Why bring it up here again? So he explains that the discussion about lighting the lamp in the Mishkan is great, but that was talking about a time when everyone was bringing all that their heart so moved them to bring, and the resources were flowing, and the light was pouring out, and it was just the beginning. But he asks, what should we do when those first resources run out? Or when Aaron, the priest, dies? Or when we are in galut, in exile? That, he says, is why the Torah brings it back again. For after the first adrenaline is gone and the original well springs of light have dried up, what should we do then? In the beginning of the pandemic in my home, oh man, we did science experiments. We raised caterpillars into butterflies and we fed them sweet fruit every day. We did Pinterest caliber art projects. And now we're trying, but it's different. There's a lot more Paw Patrol now, more tired parents, a little more slog. Our hope is battling it out with our languishing. And that idea of habituating ourselves to relighting the light each morning is more and more appealing. The ner tamid cannot be unending, unfaltering, but it can be returning regular and a ritual of replenishing. What do you need right now to relight your ner tamid? What does a languishing loved one in your life need right now to tend their fire? Maybe being here among our people on Shabbat tends our flame. Lets us accept the rest that we need in order to replenish. Maybe it's a daily walk outside, not just once, but maybe we remind ourselves that it's the regularity of it. Maybe writing a few lines of a poem each day, or putting in a few pieces of a puzzle, or talking to one light-giving person each week. Maybe it's cooking or eating something that makes our body feel good, or deciding to say a blessing before we do. Or maybe it's joining the Echad Project kickoff to give ourselves the gift of meeting someone new, or singing when there's no music, or sitting quietly under a cherry blossom tree, even if it's just for 15 minutes, or asking for help when we need it, because none of us are alone and no one needs to languish alone. So we each become Aaron and the generations of Aaron. not expecting ourselves to burn endlessly with a cheerful scooping of fuel into ceaseless daylight, but to know that when the flame sputters, when night comes or dark comes, which it will, that ours is a tradition of lamp lighters and light restorers. Our Ner Tamid is the slow burn constancy of a decision to find and create light through the slog, the fog, the boggish day to day that threatens to defeat us, but to whom we answer, not today. I am of the people who light the Ner Tamid. May we each figure out how to tend the light that we need to move from languishing back to flourishing, back even to, okay, good, yeah, and mean it. And in that light, may we locate our joy, our motivation, our energy, and our ancient tradition to regularly replenish the fuel that we need for the road ahead. Shabbat Shalom.